In 1960, 5% of America's children entered the world without a mother and father married to each other. By 1980, it was 18%. By 2000, it had risen to 33%, and 15 years later, the number reached 41%.
A New Jersey court decision makes it clear it may take two to tango, but not to give birth.
It's well established under federal and state law that there's a privacy right when a woman is in labor and giving birth.
Rutgers professor and family law expert Sally Goldfarb says a Passaic County judge made the right call last November. In his decision, which was published this week, he sided with a pregnant woman that her ex-fiancé had no legal right to be in the delivery room.
What this man was seeking to do was really interfere with the woman's ability to exercise her own choices about giving birth in privacy, and that, to me, falls outside of the rights that a father is legitimately entitled to.
In the decision, believed to be the first of its kind, the father was also told he doesn't have a right to know when the baby's born.
If the woman is alleging domestic violence, child cruelty, child abuse, then her word isn't enough. Her word has to be substantiated, whether it's by the children if they're old enough, whether it's by a third party, police, social services, etc. And judges are extremely careful to be fair. Like I say, I've seen mothers take their terrified children to contact centres to see fathers who are abusive, but who the law bends over backwards to accommodate. So no.
Let's see the law's ass crack and how the system awards bad behavior.
Bennett later convicted of making it all up. She was sentenced to 35 days in jail, then an ankle monitor and probation.
I don't feel that's justice.
Don't ask, no questions, just give the money.
I actually don't welcome today's ruling. I think we already have a very good system where we decide case by case on whether or not it's good for the children and safe for the mother in cases of child abuse.
That's really funny, you know.
They forcibly separate children from good, loving parents, generally their fathers. And we have a moral responsibility in this country to ensure that our children retain the love and care of both their parents. And that includes abusive, where cases where you said about abusive parents. I'd like to say that most abuse perpetrated on children is actually mother and child.
Out-of-wedlock births have gone from 25% in 1965 to 73% in 2015. For whites, from less than 5% to over 25%, and for Hispanics, out-of-wedlock births have risen to 53%. What happened to fathers? The answer is found in a basic law of economics. If you subsidize undesirable behavior, you will get more undesirable behavior.
Told us to come back to the front of the line.
This faggot-ass motherfucker saying you hit the motherfucking core. Yeah, because you said that he hit the core.
Feminism responsible for the fall of Rome. This GUI draws an interesting comparison between feminism in ancient Rome and present-day America, and how the rise of feminism portends a civilizationist collapse. Based on past history, it appears that a civilization that embraces feminist values will cease to exist in just a few centuries. Democracy, commerce, science, human rights, animal rights, children's rights, and women become emancipated. No-fault divorce is enacted, and quickly becomes popular by the end of the century. Till the 1-2 century AD, the family unit is destroyed, men refuse to marry, and the government tries to revive marriage with a bachelor tax, to no avail. Children are growing up without fathers.
Fatherlessness, says the report, can lead to higher rates of teenage crime, pregnancy and disadvantage. Not only are many children raised without a dad, some have no male role models at all. A quarter of primary schools, for instance, have no male teachers.
We've got this emergence of, in certain parts of the country, kind of men deserts, where children are growing up and they don't really see many male role models through the younger years, and that's a growing phenomenon, and it's, we've got to ask ourselves a question about whether that matters, and we really believe it does.
Roman women show little interest in raising their own children and frequently use nannies. The wealth and power of women grows very fast, while men become increasingly demotivated and engage in prostitution and vice.
If we teach a generation of women to treat men with suspicion and fear and value materialism such as fashion, wealth, body image, beauty magazines, and consumerism, men are going to be less likely to settle down with these women. Bars and nightclubs are one of the worst ways of pair bonding because of how cruelly men can be treated in these environments.
Displaced Roman population declines due to the low replacement birth rate. Vice and massive corruption are rampant, while the newborn Catholic religion is gaining power. It becomes the religion of the empire in 300
population, but also what happens to a society that decides to become obsessed with empowering one gender over the other and undermining its male population. In July 1968, the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment in Poolesville, Maryland. Headed by Calhoun, of course, 4 pairs of mice were introduced into a perfect mouse environment, a kind of utopian universe. It was a 9-foot, 2.7 meter square metal pen with 54-inch high, 1.4 meter sides. Each of the sides contained 4 groups of 4 vertical wire mesh tunnels. These tunnels gave the mice access to nesting boxes as well as food hoppers and water dispensers. In this micro world, there was ample food and water as well as nesting material. There were no predators for the mice to deal with. There was just one major problem, and that was the limited amount of space. The population doubled every 55 days, reaching 620 by day 315. Then the rate of population growth dropped massively. The last surviving birth was on day 600. The following is an excerpt of the study from Wikipedia. This period between day 315 and day 600 saw a breakdown in social structure and in normal social behavior. Among the aberrations in behavior were the following: expulsion of young before weaning was complete, wounding of young, inability of dominant males to maintain the defense of their territory and females, aggressive behavior of females, passivity of non-dominant males with increased attacks on each other which were not defended against. After day 600, the social breakdown continued and the population declined toward extinction. During this period, females ceased to reproduce. Their male counterparts withdrew completely, never engaging in courtship or fighting. They ate, drank, slept, and groomed themselves. All solitary pursuits. Sleek, healthy coats and an absence of scars characterized these males. They were dubbed the beautiful ones. Breeding never resumed, and behavior patterns were permanently changed.
Take a reality check here. 1 in 4 families with children in the UK is headed by a single parent. That proportion has barely changed in over a decade. We know that the vast majority of single parents do a great job and their children turn out absolutely fine.
With 34%. By 1965, it was cut in half to 17%, all before President Lyndon Johnson's so-called war on poverty. But after that war began in 1965, poverty began to flatline. From 1965 until now, the government has spent over $20 trillion to fight poverty. The poverty rate has remained unchanged, but the relationship between poor men and women has changed dramatically. That's because our generous welfare system allows women, in effect, to marry the government. And this makes it all too easy for men to abandon their traditional moral and financial responsibilities.
Once we start to, build momentum, you become kind of timid. You're like, wait a minute. Because sometimes it's too good to be true. And then you find yourself going into an area that you really didn't think you'd go.
Today, however, husbands and fathers are the butts of jokes, and the media constantly portrays them as buffoons and bumbling idiots. The second reason is that they'll lose out on sex. Men who cohabitate with their partner but aren't married have much more sex than their wedded counterparts. Recent studies have also found that cohabitators are happier and more confident than married couples. The third reason that men don't want to get married is that they could lose their children and their money. Men are aware of the dangers of divorce, specifically that the courts tend to favor mothers. Men only get custody of their children 10% of the time, and overwhelmingly are responsible for paying child support and alimony. The fourth reason is that men will lose their space. Once a man gets married, he's relegated to the dirtiest part of the house, the attic, the basement, the garage. The entire house is supposed to be a shared space, but the rise of the man cave means that the home is increasingly becoming the domain of only the wife and children. The fifth reason that men don't want to get married is that they can lose their freedom. If a man gets divorced and can't afford child support, he can get locked up. On any given day, there are almost 50,000 people in jail due to child support arrears, most of them male. For example, in Massachusetts, 96% of the people incarcerated for unpaid child support are men. The final reason that men don't want to get married is that the single life is better than ever. In the past, single men were looked at with suspicion, but this is no longer the case. There are plenty of 40-year-old bachelors. Employers look favorably at employees with non-conflicting family responsibilities. Dating has gotten easier, and premarital sex is no longer taboo. On top of this, there's more to entertain single men today than there was in the past, with video games, cable TV, and the internet providing diversions not previously available. To recap, men are opting out of marriage, in addition to education and work, at alarming rates. This isn't due to laziness, but due to rational choices where men no longer see the value of participating in these areas. People respond to incentives, so if we want more men to marry, it needs to be a more attractive proposition.
Married? I mean, you can't get married. I'm a 30-year-old boy.
We're a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need.